Well, the Mad Lads did it, and to me, this is a desperation move from Marvel Comics, who is really, really struggling to have X-Men be relevant in today's comic world. They have attempted to reboot it a couple times in the last few years. Obviously, Jonathan Hickman's Krakoa just reset the entire mutant universe to where it didn't even feel like X-Men anymore, and then he left a big jumbled mess in the hands of a bunch of diversity hire writers who destroyed the entire brand and made it very, very difficult for anybody to care about any of these characters. Now, you'd think a relaunch would fix things, and they relaunched it, and it did not go well. It was a complete dud. People were not interested in what Gail Simone had to offer on Uncanny X-Men, and Jed McKay's X-Men was extremely boring. And so it just ended up just killing the rest of the line, which the rest of the line was filled with diversity hires who were doing the same diversity thing, like making a Kitty Pryde lesbian self-insert comic. It was very weird. And nobody bought it. And so those are struggling, and they're like, oh gosh, we got to do anything. Now, this is exactly what happened with DC Comics with their all-in, thing that they did last year. So this is a circle of these two companies like following each other's leads and, of course, trying to copy each other's things that work and copy each other's things that don't work, and it's an endless cycle. So Marvel had their hit with the Ultimate Universe because of Jonathan Hickman. It's really just because Jonathan Hickman wrote the Ultimates. That's the only reason people bought it. And of course, with not the Ultimates, Ultimate Spider-Man. And of course, they previewed it with Peter Parker married and with children, which is what people wanted. And then Marvel just didn't listen in terms of what people want out of Spider-Man. So Spider-Man's flailing, at least their mainline universe is. And they did well with that. And it supported a few different titles in the Ultimate Universe, which are all pretty terrible, except for that Ultimate Spider-Man. Typical, exactly what Krakoa was with X-Men, right? And then DC's like, let's do it ourselves. We're going to do an absolute DC universe. And they did the same thing. And they were like, oh, Scott Snyder, you liked his Batman run. And did the same thing. And then brought in the same people Marvel did with the Ultimate stuff, Denny's Camp and the like, to do their weird identity politics stuff on the tertiary books, which aren't selling as well. So it's the same cycle again. So Marvel rebooted X-Men. And if you look at what DC did in addition to this, they decided to bring back nostalgia bait. They're like, let's do Long Halloween Batman with Jeff Loeb, but, Tim Sale's not alive. R.I.P. to him. But that sold really, really well. Let's bring back Jim Lee to redo Hush. Those were the things that people loved back in the day. So Marvel sees that John Byrne's been, making these X-Men stories on his website for years. A weird thing, but John Byrne's into doing fan fiction and the like. And this is what happens. They're like, they've been begging him for years to allow them to publish it, which is pretty interesting because he gets to do things on his terms. I would really be interested to see what the terms of these contracts are. But, of course, we're never going to see that. So it was rumored that this was happening, and guess what? It's happening. Let's get into what's exactly happening in just a moment. I'm a comic creator myself. I do things independently, and, of course, rather than focus on brand and the like, I focus on story and characters that actually develop and change. That's what Marvel and DC doesn't have anymore. They don't have a continuity. They don't have anything that really matters. And so no matter what, their stories really fall flat. The only way they can do things is do these Elseworld universes where they're separate universes because they can actually, I guess, do stories that progress in that point, at which point they're just going to end that universe at some point once it stops selling. So it's kind of something that none of the stories really actually have any impact. We do. Flying Sparks ended up being about 15 issues, and I build it up in a wonderful climax that really pays off everything I set up here. Now, I'm re-releasing this as a webcomic because the webcomics community is so much healthier than the Marvel and DC and the comic shop model and the like. I put it on Substack. It's a free speech website. So grab this in the description below. Get on the Substack. Start reading today. Like John Byrne's doing, posting to his own website with the X-Men stuff. That's how he built a following on this. I'm doing much the same here with Flying Sparks. So check this out. You're going to love this. It's in the description below. If you do want to support, there's a paid membership for $5, and you get exclusive comic books. You get to support me so I can create my art, of course, and make more comics for you guys. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you reading. We have so much more stuff to come. I've got a lot of books out there, guys. And I do have a web store. If you do like physical comics, they're in the description below. You can grab those and peruse. I've got tons of different things. A little something for everybody is what we try to do. That's what Marvel and DC should be doing. And they kind of are with this. This is something that I might actually buy. So, wow. Shocker. I never thought I'd say that about Marvel again, but here we are. So John Byrne, X-Men Elsewhen from Marvel Arts is made official at DC Comics, or San Diego Comic-Con, sorry, at DC Comics. And so they did a panel on the X-Men stuff, and they've got everything that's going on. And this happened at the Abrams licensing panel. So this is interesting right here. This is a licensing thing. Abrams Marvel Arts is what's going to be coming out with this. This is not going to be the normal X-Men line. This is not going to be from a normal Marvel Comics thing. And we've talked about this. This is an interesting trend, too. We've talked about this for the past few years. Marvel and DC Comics increasingly don't want to support their comic publishing industry. Disney, for everything else but Marvel, licenses everything out. And so they don't want to deal with it. They just want to maintain the license and the like. So we're going to increasingly start seeing more licensed products coming out of this stuff. And that's why they're winding down their universes and their continuity and the like, because they know it doesn't matter. If you've got a creator who wants to write Superman who's really good and wants to do his own take on Superman, that's what's going to sell at this point, because there is no continuity for Superman. So just like there's no mainline Superman that really matters at this time. They reboot it and restart it and redo it so many times now. It's pointless. And so they're priming these markets for this eventual change where they're just not even going to bother publishing and they're just going to license out characters. And there's been talks. Robert Kirkman was talking about buying some DC characters last year. That happened behind the scenes. And, of course, we've seen that Dark Horse is back publishing some Star Wars stuff. This is moving towards this direction. So we have this now, Abrams and Marvel licensing. They announced a new graphic novel collection from John Byrne, and this is it right here. So this is 32 issues. It's going to be inked, colored, and relettered in 3 volumes into trade paperbacks. So they're not even bothering with issues, which is interesting, too, because, again, issues don't really make money. Everything's in trade paperback. Everybody likes to read. I like to read the big epic collections, right? You got in the DC's Finest collections. They're like 300-400 pages. I think it's nice because you can get a lot of story like read through in that, and it's a nice weight to where you don't have to, like the omnibuses are a bit too much for me. This is perfect. 8 issues per volume, and they're relettering this stuff. The first one in April 2026. I'm going to be picking this up. Of course I will. John Byrne doing X-Men is going to just pick up where he left off back in the day and makes it really different and very interesting. So Abrams has been publishing graphic novels and chapter books from Marvel. So All Hulk Feels, Iron Man Something Strange, Avengers, The Veracity Trap, Fantastic Four Full Circle. This was the Alex Ross one. And Spider-Man panel by panel. So they've been doing this stuff. Like I said, they're moving in this direction. I've been saying this for years. And, of course, all the detractors who are industry simps are like, they're not going to do that. The comic industry is doing just fine. They always lie. And this is not a sign. John Byrne getting licensed and this becoming official and Marvel picking this up and actually making money off this is not a sign of them doing fine. It's a sign of desperation. The fact that they're going out there and having a licensed group actually publish this is, again, a sign that they're moving this kind of stuff where they know they're going to make some money off to licensing as market tests to move more of that out there. This is happening in real time. It's really fascinating to watch right here. So this is it. The Marvel license panel. Everybody thought it was going to happen at the X-Men panel, like because there's an X-Men panel yesterday with a bunch of people from the mainline X-Men. Didn't happen there. They moved it over here. Very interesting move on that front rather than doing it at the X-Men panel. That's kind of wild as this is happening. And so as you can see, there it is. John Byrne just absolutely crushing it right now. And no, he knows he's got the leverage because he's John Byrne. And that's what all these creators do now because Marvel just churns through the new creators like they're water. If you get a little too expensive, you're done. There's only a few people who actually have the like actual clout with the readership to be able to move the needle at this point. And those people all can just command whatever they want, and they can do whatever they want at this point. And that's where everything's going in this direction in the future. That is the new state of comics. Interesting stuff. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Of course, check out my comics, guys. The webcomic community is way nicer, and we have a wonderful community here who really cares about comics and books. I join the Discord, hang out with us, and get on the Substack. It's a wonderful thing, and I appreciate all you guys building this up over the last few weeks. It's been wonderful watching this grow, and I appreciate you being there. We'll be back soon.